Hi, I'm Sean O'Connor, and here we are on Rose Island in Newport. Rose Island is an 18-acre island here in the Narragansett Bay. It's the home of the Rose Island Lighthouse. It's also the home of so many interesting layers of history and important wildlife habitat as well. And it's a really magical place. This land was formerly used by Narragansett peoples and was called Conoconoquet. And then at some point, once the colonists were here and the early Americans, it was given the name Rose Island. We actually don't know with 100% certainty how it got that name. And then the lighthouse was built in 1869 as a really important navigational aid for all the shipping traffic coming up through Narragansett Bay. So for 101 years, there were lighthouse keepers here running the island, and they shared the island with the military that was also here as part of Fort Hamilton, as well as the Naval Torpedo Station that was really active in World Wars I and II here in the Newport area. This piece of land that we're on here, that the lighthouse sits on, it's actually public land owned by the city of Newport that our organization has managed for almost 40 years now. We're called the Rose Island Lighthouse and Fort Hamilton Trust. It's our organization that was responsible for restoring the lighthouse. In the 80s, it was in total disrepair after it was decommissioned in 1971. We restored the lighthouse, we relit the light, and now, a few decades later, we manage the island. We play host to educational programs and school field trips, to overnight visitors to our retreat house. And then the bird refuge is owned by our organization, but it's permanently barred from development. So it will always be a wildlife refuge. And it's also really important coastal habitat for birds and for other species, especially as seawater start to rise over the decades ahead. At least here on Rose Island, there'll be an area where some of those coastal wetlands can migrate inwards, which I think is really important. I'm really honored to be stewarding the legacy of this amazing place. To get to Rose Island, we have our own boat called Rose. It's an 18-passenger boat, so we take our overnight guests out on Rose from Fort Adams, which is just to our south here. And then daily visitors can actually come on the Jamestown Newport ferry as well. It's a hop-on, hop-off ferry. Within the lighthouse, the first floor is a museum. It's open from 10 to 4 daily in season, so visitors can come and learn about lighthouse keepers and the history of the lighthouse. When you go into the museum, you really take a step back in time. It's really set up like it would have been for a lighthouse keeper around the turn of last century. And then there are also overnight guests that stay in the lighthouse on the first floor, which we call our museum floor, as well as the second floor, the keeper's apartments. Visitors can climb up to the tower of the lighthouse. There's no better view of Newport Harbor and Narragansett Bay than you get from the top of the lighthouse tower, and the light still shines every night as well. When you come out here, you really get to take a step back in time, and when the last boat leaves at 4 o'clock, if you're staying overnight, there's no place like it. There's such a peaceful retreat to just take in the sights and sounds of Narragansett Bay, away from cars, away from the hustle and bustle of just modern life. We don't have Wi-Fi out here, so you really get to unplug and disconnect. When you drive over the Pell Bridge, you see this island. Look to your south and you see Rose Island. I'm sure if anyone's driven over the Pell Bridge, they've probably noticed it, maybe didn't think too much about it. And it's just such a gem here in the Narragansett Bay that I hope more people will come discover. I just love that people can come out here and, bring a picnic for the day, sit on the beach. They can sit up here in the Adirondack chairs by the lighthouse. And I think it's one of the greatest lesser known day excursions that's in Rhode Island, is coming out on the Jamestown Newport ferry to Rose Island for the day.